Hi everybody, this is Phil with High Grade Strategies, hoping to bring you one of our first deck profiles on the Gundam TCG. Now, I personally have not been able to attend many events yet. That being said, I have had a chance to look at a variety of decks in the meta, and now that we're in our third set, I think I've kind of found a little bit of that groove as to where I want to go. Well, this one's not a normal meta deck. It is definitely something that is going to grow stronger in the meta as the sets continue. And that is the Vulture archetype, or the Gundam X deck. For this deck, it's pretty simple. I'm running mostly the Vulture cards, of which there's a few different options now that you can run it. It's mostly going to focus on the Gundam X as well as the Garad pilot. That being said, purple stuff and the Gundam X stuff on its own, Vulture stuff, it doesn't have enough support to be run alone. You have to partner it up. Now, in this instance, I've chosen to partner it up with the red new UNE. Laying the deck out a little bit, you can see it. I'm just going to kind of highlight the split of really how this deck goes in terms of, first the color split, and then we'll get into the actual mechanics of the deck. Separate out, which I know I could have done this previously, but it doesn't take all that long, and I think it really demonstrates just how much of this is the actual Gundam X versus the new UNE. With it divided up, what we get is roughly something that looks a little bit like this. So I could separate it further into units and pilots here, as well as commands. But really, what we are left with is quite a bit of Gundam X and very little new UNE. Now, that being said, the new UNE stuff that I've chosen to add to the deck, it is very effective. I think in a lot of decks that are running red, you will find some of these cards, and I think particularly the Gundam Versago has proven to be an essential piece in a lot of red strategies. In addition to that Gundam Versago, we're going to start with this, like I said, the new UNE stuff here, because there's just so little of it. So in addition to that Versago, we're also running a pilot in the form of Shagia Frost. We are running the Daughtris Command unit as a 4 of, same as Shagia. We are running the Gundam Versago as a 3 of, and we are running 2 Gundam Astrons and 2 Gundam Astron MA mode. So all of these new UNE cards are really focused on the keeping the tempo of the deck until we can get to the point of the 3 shield removal. Once we've hit the 3 shield removal, the Gundam Versago is an essential piece for closing out games. The amount of damage it can deal is, not easily overstated, but the versatility of the card really comes in only after those shields have been broken. You can play it a little bit earlier than that, or if you are in a defensive position, obviously it's still a great unit to get in there. With the Breach one, it does a lot of work against damaged enemy units, but it really shines at that point where you've already started to put the pressure. The Gundam Astron, the Daughtris Commands, as well as the mode, the MA mode, really just to kind of fill out, like I said, the tempo. Shagia is able to link up with any of the bigger models. It just takes the new UNE trait to link up. So, I apologize. The Gundam Astron he actually can't link up with, or the Daughtris Command, but he can still pair with them. His main target is going to be the Versago, but he is also able to link up with that Astron if you need to. And it does some solid work, but in all the games I've had so far, the unit from the new UNE that really stands out is going to be the Versago. Now, that being said, just kind of scaling back a little bit away from that and focusing on the Daughter's Command real quick. This one is also a neat trick because, well, I don't like the token archetype so much as it stands for new UNE because they come into play rested and it's a 0-1. It is just a nice way to keep the body pressure on the board. Now, most players, they're going to ignore that token. It's not going to matter. But I've found in games, people get worried at what the token might lead to, and so they try to kill it quickly. So this, it makes a token as long as you have another new UNE unit deployed when it is destroyed. And I think that's just, it's solid. And, you know, it's good. Really why we want this, though, is on turn 2, it's a 3-1. It gets in there. It does work. All right, so moving on. Now, on the other side of things, we look at the Vulture side, the Gundam X side of the deck. We've got a lot more. Now, one unit that I know is kind of each color has their version of it, but I was so excited once we did have one in purple, is the Janus Custom. That's going to be your early game drop, your turn 1, and it works. I mean, it's got a slightly bigger body. You're probably almost never going to put a pilot on it, but if you put a pilot on it, it has that survivability that annoys some players. Moving from there, I kind of want to just sit here and focus on, I guess, the units right away. Our next up unit is going to be our Gundam Airmaster. Now, I'm running it as a 3-of, and it's the Blocker Gundam Airmaster. Just like white blockers, anything that's running blockers, it can be a problem. People get really annoyed at how quickly their strategy can get kind of undone depending on what they're attacking with or how they're pressuring by just having a decent blocker. When he is partnered up with his pilot, of course I'm referring to the Gundam as if it's a dude, you know, just like magic creatures. Anyhow, when he's piloted with Wits here, he just becomes just enough of a threat in those blocker situations that I've noticed a lot of people sit there and hesitate on some early to mid-game attacks. And I love that, because that's exactly why that's there, is to kind of control that mid-game curve until we can move out to something a little bit larger. Now, with Vulture, moving on to something a little bit larger previously meant just going to the X. Now we've actually got a couple of options. One of those is the GX bit, which on deploy, the GX bit allows you to deploy. You can actually deploy this unit from your trash, choose one enemy unit that has AP 4 or less, and deal 2 damage to it, which the direct ping is mostly a red-blue thing, but having some of that in purple and having that in Vulture is fantastic. I really should be running the set of them, but just currently, since release, this has been all I've been able to really get, which, you know, it's a little frustrating, but it still allows me to run well in the deck in the games that I've played. That being said, I'm going to move these units up. Moving on, we have our first of our Gundam X's. So I'm running 3 variations of the Gundam X. There are 3 variations now, and I'm running all of them. The first of those is going to be the level 4 3 cost, and that's the Gundam X at a 3-4. And this unit, how it works, during pair with the Vulture pilot, when it's destroyed, choose one Vulture unit card that is level 5 or higher from your trash and add it to your hand. There's a lot of speculation that purple is meant to be kind of the reanimator color for the Gundam TCG, and this really kind of indicates that yes, that is. You'll see with both the Vegan cards and some of the purple commands I'll bring up in a moment that a lot of it is focused on the number of units or the number of cards in your trash. Additionally, Vulture has the Gundam Leopard, which works specifically on number of cards or number of units in the trash. And like I said, there's a lot of commands. Vegan is another thing in the purple color, which also relies on that graveyard reanimator kind of build. Now, moving on from there, the next step up is the Gundam X Divider. Now, the Gundam X Divider is really neat because it has a when linked ability. You may choose one unit that is level 4 or lower from your trash, pay its cost, and deploy it. And that right there, like I said, it continues with the idea that Purple is supposed to be Reanimator, and it is the first kind of easy Reanimator card that I think I've seen or personally noticed in the Gundam TCG, and I like that. A lot of the other ones have really specific, you have to have a number of cards in the graveyard or trash zone before you can activate, and this is not like that. It just simply says, when, this is linked, you may sit there and choose a level 4 target, pay its cost, deploy it, and that is great. And then moving on to our top end for the Vulture side of things, which I'm so proud of the LR Plus art on this. It was one of the first cards that I got in an LR Plus. I was like, oh my god, it's so cool. I love it. I absolutely want to run it. And that is the Big Gundam X. So the top end Gundam X here is a 6.5 unit that has a couple of options. It has a couple of abilities. It has suppression. Damage to shields by an attack is dealt to the first 2 cards simultaneously. Unfortunately, suppression is not as strong as I was hoping it would be when the game first launched. Reading the rules on suppression, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. You can use it to snipe that last shield and then just go right in for the kill. Unfortunately, that is not how it works, which is probably for the best, because that would really make suppression able to just pull so far ahead in this game. That being said, it's still a useful ability. It's just not quite so overpowerful as I thought it was going to be when it was initially put. Additionally, during Link, during your turn, while there are 7 or more cards in your trash, all other Vulture units get AP plus 2. Now, that ability, an Anthem ability like that in Purple, I was not expecting. I thought that this game might follow kind of more of the traditional Magic the Gathering archetype. So I figured white would have some Anthem effects, green potentially would have some Anthem effects in addition to ramp. But seeing it in Purple is really nice. And as you can see, the number of targets I have for that Vulture AP boost it's significant. It's sizable. There is 6 total units in the deck to choose from, and they're all pretty good aside from the Janus Custom on the offense to begin with. So giving them that AP boost of plus 2 just really helps out. Now, moving on from there, going over the rest of the Vulture stuff as well as the Purple commands, because really I'm only running the Purple commands in this deck, and I think you'll be able to see why pretty quick. So our remaining pilots, and I should be running this as a 4 of. Again, I only have a 2 of so far. We have Garad Ran and Tifa Adil. When paired, you may discard 1. If you do, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal 1 Vulture unit card among them and add it to your hand. Return the remaining cards randomly to the bottom of your deck. Deck manipulation is great. Being able to get those targets is great. Honestly, the main thing here is it allows you to get to that Gundam X if you don't already have it, or get another unit on the field if you do have the Gundam X, so that way you have a target for that Anthem ability. It's a burst add to hand, like a lot of the marquee pilots from the other colors and the other respective shows. It's pretty solid at a +1/+2, but mainly it's that deck manipulation and getting those units that makes this pilot just so good. It's great. It's a great pilot. There's a lot of marquee pilots that have unique abilities. I know Amuro Ray, obviously for his rest ability, is favored by most people, but Garad and Tina here, I just love it. It's the best pilot in Purple, in my opinion, currently. That being said, a new pilot that was added with GDO3 that really helps out, and I'm running it as a 3 of currently, is Jamil Nite. So Jamil has Burst, add this card to your hand, as well as during Link and attack, you may discard 1 card if you do draw 1. And that's huge. Much like Magic, Gundam TCG mostly has stuck to blue being the draw color, so a lot of the blue decks will revolve around draw, especially since the release of the ST08 Gundam Hathaway Flash. The Penelope is a huge draw engine, but having that ability to draw cards in Purple is wonderful. It gives more strength to the deck as far as being able to cycle through and get to the units you need. And I found that this card is essential for just setting me from mid-game to late game. I've had a lot of wins just in, having friends over level of playing at this time, and I can't wait to really take it and test it out at local competition, because I think even in its current form, with the variety that I have from cards like Jamil and Garad and the ability to manipulate the deck, it's just getting a pretty solid synergy. I have one other deck that I feel is a bit more synergistic that I might talk about in another deck profile, but honestly, this deck is just so awesome because of how well these cards work together. All right, so moving on to our last step, which technically it's 2 steps, but one of them is kind of silly because, and I'm sure some of the people watching the video may have already noticed, where are the bases? How come no red bases? What purple base are you running? I'm really running the only quote-unquote good option in purple, especially in Vulture, and that is going to be the Freedon. The Freedon is a Vulture warship, a turn 2, 1 cost, 0/5. It's pretty standard as far as the bases go in strength and such. Where the Freedon tends to differ is going to be just in its ability. So, on deploy, you add 1 shield to your hand, and then when this card is destroyed, place the top 2 cards of your deck in your trash. This just helps you build towards Reanimator. I'm sure the Freedon's going to be run in any Vegan deck that is running Reanimation as a strategy. It's going to be run in any of the combination decks that are trying to get units to the trash to set up for a number of units, or just having various targets. It's good. It's solid, but the main thing is that when it's destroyed, it lets me get those cards to the trash, which sets up very many targets for some of my other things. So let's get into some of those other things. That's in addition to the, Gundam X and such like that. So, one of those is going to be Awakened Power. I'm running it as a 2 of. I'm debating on whether or not I want to go up to a 3 or a 4. The list that I based this on is a list from a Japanese meta that was just around GDO2. I haven't seen much in the way of a Vulture Gundam X build in the American meta at all, and I know when I do go to local stores, most people aren't playing it. There's a lot of Wing decks, there's a lot of Psycho Gundam decks, some Xeon Rush decks, but I'm not seeing anyone that's playing this, so it's hard to compare. But I think I'm going to want to run that a little higher. Awaken Power. During main, choose 1 unit that is level 5 or lower from your trash, pay its cost, and deploy it. Now, it's a late game card at turn 6, 2 cost, but once you get to turn 6, being able to bring back anything that cost 4 or less, if you still have the remaining 6 energy standing, is outstanding. It's just wonderful because it works with the other purple cards that are throwing units in the trash. You're able to set up targets for late game and just kind of move in that curve, and then once you curve out to this, you're just bringing targets back to fill in those gaps and keep the pressure on the opponent. I had many games where it's like, okay, we're moving to the end, what's going on? Can you get this shield? Can you win this turn? And people will tell me, if you can't win this turn, I'm going to beat you next turn. And this card just lets me bring back an extra target that just kind of gets me that extra turn, and that would be the Gundam Airmaster. Using this to bring back the Gundam Airmaster as a blocker in the late game, which again, just bring that Gundam Airmaster back out. Yeah. So choosing to bring this back as a target, being able to block when people tell me they're about to win the game, has made so many, let's say, not friends at the table so far. But I love it. It's a great strategy, and it's just a built-in kind of redundancy for the deck. There's other targets, obviously, you can choose to try to pressure. You can even get the smaller Gundam X. Just grab it, grab Garad, or if you have Garad in your hand and you're ready to go, you grab it, and then you can link up, and you've got that game. Another card that I'm running as a 2 of, Momentary Respite. So, Momentary Respite, on burst, you draw 1, or on main, choose 1 purple pilot card from your trash and add it to your hand. Again, Reanimator, the strategy of going into the graveyard to grab stuff. This card is wonderful. I'm still torn on whether or not to run it as a 3-of, and part of that is because I'm really heavy on the units currently, but also I have just a few select commands, and I've found that I use them kind of just as specific tool pieces. I don't rely on them as my main pieces of the strategy as much as some other people rely on their commands. I find these are toolkit pieces that only come up kind of late game or specifically. So, and that just, it makes me hesitant to go at a higher number because I think 2 is almost perfect. And part of that is because the last card, the last command, which, whew, another heavy one, late game, turn 5, cost 4. On burst, you can choose one enemy unit that's 3 or lower and deal 2 damage. On main, choose 6 purple unit cards from your trash, exile them from the game. If you do, choose one enemy unit and destroy it. So Decisive Last Resort, which I know I should have said the name ahead of time, but I really wanted to get to the text because this is the first true piece of removal that I felt like we had in the Gundam TCG. And it's kind of cool that, you know, in this archetype, I'm able to talk about a couple of things that like I said, I haven't seen yet in this game, but they feel like things in other games. And that's part of what's going to be the, I guess, kind of determining factor in the longevity of this game, is the quality of the cards and how well things can translate for some players who they're set in their ways, they know how they like to play games, and they want to find the way to play this game that way. This is solid removal similar to Magic the Gathering. Now, I know it's a heavy cost, and I know exiling those cards from the trash seems like it can be a pain, but I promise you, at the end of the game, when you are setting up to do this, if you are able to kill that Gundam Wing or kill that key target with this Decisive Last Resort, you will see the soul leave your opponent's eyes. And I love that. It's also just beautiful artwork. That alone made me interested in the card, but really the effectiveness of it can't be, again, overstated. Being able to do 2 damage on the burst is cool, and if I were running this in a red-purple ping strategy, I'd probably be running as a 4-of just for that, with the hope of getting it in the shields. That being said, in this deck, I'm just running it as a 2 because it's mainly the late-game removal piece to sit there and just open the way for me to be able to finish off my opponent. Or if I'm in a tight spot, it's that way for me to be able to come back into the game. So, with that being said, just going over kind of the quick strategy of the deck, now that we've gone through the cards, it is a strategy of not so much flooding the field, but trading. Early trading is what I find has been the most effective for this deck. You're able to set up situations where your Gundam Air Masters and your Gundam X are mainly just going out there and tearing up the enemy units, keeping them from being able to destroy your shields or be able to put up much of an attack until you can get any of your bigger units or just a linked pair up. Linked pairs, obviously an effective strategy in any deck, but the linked pairs in here I find really just cut through and give me those quick avenues to victory. If I'm not already able to pressure enough with these guys, then I can sit there and utilize things like, of course, the Gundam Astron, which is going to give me support. The other Gundam Astron, the MA model, with its high maneuverability, it's great. It gives another unit high maneuverability, so mainly you're using this almost like a command. I could have mentioned it in the red commands, but it really helps just in that early to mid-game creeping through. And then, much like I mentioned at the beginning, once we get to that midpoint and the shields start dropping, then the Gundam Versago comes in. It is able to just typically clean up the board. And if for any reason the game is going on longer than that, that's when we are just hitting that Anthem boost with the Gundam X and closing out the game. I've had the deck built for about a month now. I took it from GDO2 into GDO3, so it's had some upgrades, but mainly those upgrades are the Gundam X Divider, as well as the Jamil and the new G-Bit unit there. So, that was my deck profile on the Vulture new UNE archetype, or the Gundam X archetype. I really enjoy running the deck. I'm hoping to take it to competition and see how it does, and then maybe let everyone know how that went, and get some feedback, even possibly from you in the comments, as well as feedback from other players, and see the direction of the deck. But if you liked this deck profile, and if you like the content on this channel, then I urge you to please like, share, comment on this video, and of course, if you have the time, subscribe. Other than that, this has been Phil with High Grade Strategies, and I really appreciate you checking out this deck profile. We hope to bring you more content as soon as we are able. Stay safe, stay warm, and have a great day.